Okay, welcome everyone. We're here for Town Hall v6.3. Excited to catch up with everyone and share about some of the latest updates in Tableland. So just for an overview, we're going to be recapping some recent news and announcements and updates in the ecosystem, and we'll take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free you can share them in our general channel, or you can raise your hand during that session and we can bring you on stage to ask the team. So with that, we're just going to start passing around to different folks on the team, and we'll start with Andrew, who's just going to get everyone up to speed on Tableland and what we're up to here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Really happy to be at another town hall. It's been a while, I feel. But last week was a really exciting week for us, so we're going to talk a bit about that. For those of you that are new to our Discord and new to the project, I always think it's helpful just to start with a little bit of what we are and what we're building. So Tableland is a permissionless database for Web3 applications. A good way to think about it is just like Filecoin is for storing and retrieving raw files and bytes, Tableland is for storing and querying structured data. So what I mean by structured data is you can think of it like data in Excel spreadsheets. That's the kind of data that under the hood of applications lives in databases. And so Tableland provides a database to do this. If you're familiar with the Web 2 world, you can think of it akin to a serverless database. But unlike those solutions, it's really a permissionless infrastructure layer. So it runs natively in Web 3. And developers can use it alongside all the expected blockchain primitives. So you can do really cool things with Tableland databases and the data that you're querying from it, alongside roles in DAOs, for example, or to back voting in communities, or really cool things that extend, token gating or wallet-based authentication. And so I think one of the first experiments we saw was allowing people to do kind of real-time swaps of data where one user didn't have permission to change data based on their wallet address, and they could basically buy it or exchange it from somebody else. And then with one transaction on chain, they suddenly were able to modify and change data. And so developers are using this to build more dynamic and interactive NFTs, where you set different, an owner of an NFT, for example, can be the only one that's allowed to change certain attributes of that NFT, mixing attributes between, immutable attributes that show up in rarity rankings, for example, and mutable attributes. And that's really handy for building games, which we've seen a lot of. And then we're starting to see lots of other interesting kind of data-related use cases. We're live on a handful of different chains. You can check out our docs for that. We have more chains coming very soon. And we're going to talk about a bunch of events and things we're at today. And I know a number of you join out of our rigs community. So our rigs is really the first project ever built on the Tableland database. And so it's a project that we've built ourselves. It is meant to really showcase what's possible with this mutable database powering an NFT. And so we're slowly putting together lots of little different experiments inside of the NFT that can power a different kind of ownership experience. And we're continuing to build that out. We have some cool things coming related to that in the near future. And we'll talk a bit about that today. I think that's all I got, Brian.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. And so we'll just start passing it around. So Dan Buchholz, talk about pilot program.
Sure. Yeah. So maybe to kick off, it's just quick roundup. Since it's been a while, roundup what we did with pilot program 3, and then how we're approaching the program moving forward. So those that aren't familiar, the pilot program is like this way that we invite builders into the ecosystem and build out some prototype on the protocol for like an 8-week period. So that's like supporting them, helping out with like solutioning the idea out and making sure it's like a good fit for the protocol as a whole. So last time we had, I think it was 10 teams end up completing the program in its entirety, and there's a few that were still working. They're all, actively developing things out, and some that we're continuing to have conversations with, just like figure out how else we can help out their build out itself. As part of that, there was some match funding that occurred where all teams that join the pilot program get a specific grant to actually like complete the program and help out with that development. And then there's also match funding that takes place there as well, where some of the partner shares that we have in the ecosystem actually like match the same amount that the Tableland protocol paid out to those teams. So those match funding grants were given by the Toucan protocol and by Filecoin. And those were directed at the teams of Ecoland and Murmur. So Ecoland is like this Web3 eco-friendly game, and Murmur is an ASMR platform for like composable. It's an NFT-based platform for ASMR, which is like a pretty interesting like space if you have about it. So all in all, 10 teams. Those two were the winners of the grant itself, and then like moving forward, we're actually like altering the program, starting with pilot program 4. And we're accepting applications now. If you head to our main website, there should be a pilot program link that links over to that actual grant process, but it's a little bit more async in nature, trying to make it a bit more freeform, just easier for builders to do what they do and just build things. So same type of concept where we're helping them with the solutioning aspects, the actual like support of the build out, but making it less synchronous with, instead of like just a batch of weekly meetings with everyone, it's more just geared towards each and every project and how they want to approach things. So if you're interested, definitely check that out and apply, as we are, as I said, currently accepting applications there and kicking things off pretty soon.
Sweet. Thanks, DTB. And Marla, are you here to share a little bit about some partnership stuff?
I am. I'm here. So we have some exciting updates, like Dan mentioned. So the pilot program chair, Filecoin, will continue. So essentially any projects that apply for pilot program and are planning on using Filecoin's tools in any way, and that would include the FVM and or just Filecoin storage network, would qualify potentially for matched funding from them. And so that's something we'll talk to applicants about, but there is a place when you apply to sort of indicate if you're planning to use those tools. Toucan is doing a bit of work right now in refining some use cases that they're sort of looking for within the regen space that I think will just give a little more direction to where teams might be able to apply there. So once those use cases are out, we'll give updates on potential match funding from the Toucan protocol. Some other exciting updates. We did launch support for Arbitrum Nova, which is awesome. Andrew mentioned some sort of potential use cases. Nova is a really great fit. They're sort of heavy in the social and gaming, decentralized social and gaming. So a really nice fit with Tableland. So now folks building on Nova can use Tableland as their database. We'll be joining their joint AMA as well on Twitter on May 5th. I believe that's at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So definitely tune in to hear some chat there. And we also published a couple of blog posts that just kind of go into a higher level look at how Tableland and Nova together support builders in the gaming and social space, and then also a deeper technical sort of how to get started guide. So check that out. We joined Game 7 for their community call. Definitely a lot of synergies. They're supporting teams building open source games via sort of like a fund. And they're sort of an independent, decentralized organization to decide where that funding goes. There's lots of active grants there. So I encourage teams building an open source in the gaming space to check them out as well. We had a lot of good conversation come out of that. And then obviously Filecoin has continued to be a really awesome partner of ours. We had a great event with them at ETH Denver at their hacker base there. where we were joined with pilot program teams who kind of presented how they were using Tableland and Filecoin together. And then also we had some folks from the ecosystem on the Filecoin side and our team present ways that you could use their storage tools with our database. I already mentioned the grant, so I won't jump into that. We are actively working on support for FVMs. You've heard a lot about that, but one of the cool things is we've been talking to early builders on the FVM, just finding ways that we can support them with our database, and then also large data sets that are using Filecoin as their decentralized storage provider, and having some really sort of nice opening chats about how we might be able to weave in there and looking for feedback. So if you fall into either of those categories, definitely hit us up. We'd love to talk to you. And we're planning some joint initiatives around EthCC Paris. So we'll keep the community updated for anybody who's going to be there to make sure that you guys can come by. And then finally, just lots of activity around teams that are starting to weave Tableland into their projects, which is cool to see. Community tracking and sort of like reputation-based NFTs is a use case that's coming up a lot. Drivers was part of our pilot program, is rolling out race passes, which is a sort of dynamic NFT extension to the initial PFP that they launched. We have a couple like low code, no code NFT platforms that are building dynamic, making it easy for existing collections to either add dynamic traits or add utility to existing NFTs. And we've also been talking to perpetual storage providers as a great use case, and data DAOs. So these teams are kind of all getting started. We'll definitely be showcasing exactly how they're using Tableland and just sharing their projects with you as that all gets built out. So stay tuned in our Discord for updates there. It's like that.
Amazing. Yeah, it's been super exciting to see in both the pilot program and in these conversations with partners just how developers and ecosystems are exploring working with Tableland. A lot of exciting things coming. So next up will be Joe, who will represent the engineering team and talk about some of the recent shifts in the ecosystem.
Thanks, Brian. So yeah, a quick update. Some of the cool stuff the engineering team has been shipping recently. We implemented the EIP 4906, which emits metadata change events in our rigs NFT. So when you park or pilot your rig, all the marketplaces will pick up those changes a lot faster, see them quickly. As Marla mentioned, we launched Arbitrum Nova, which is super cool. It's very inexpensive and fast. Excited to see that. We also, since Goerli testnet has been depreciated, we're also depreciating that, and we're setting up support for Sepolia testnet, which is the replacement for Goerli. On top of that, and maybe the biggest change that's happened recently is we have made it a lot easier to do all or nothing transactions that mutate across any number of tables. So a single contract transaction can mutate any number of tables, and if any one of those mutations fail for some reason, then the whole thing gets rolled back. So it's has the feel of your like traditional SQL atomic transaction. Really excited to see that. I think that's going to enable a lot of use cases. And yeah, that's all I've got for now. So quick little thorough update, but yeah, excited to see those changes happening.
Awesome. Yeah, there's been so much great work happening behind the scenes. And each Tuesday, we're trying to let the community know kind of what's been going on. So stay tuned for those updates as they come each week. And next will be Satulo, who'll share about Tableland Studio project.
Yeah, Darren here. I just wanted to tell you about a new project we're working on called Tableland Studio. It is, like you're familiar with other existing database as a service offerings out there. Most of them have some sort of web-based UI. So it is that for Tableland, but with some really important additions in capabilities specific to Tableland. So you'll be able to do kind of like your typical creating tables, editing data and tables, importing data, exporting data, all those things. But then also, the capability to deploy your table schemas on different blockchains, and view related transaction usage and query information related to those. The types of things that right now using Tableland, you have to go to multiple sources like Etherscan and tablescan.io and maybe OpenSea to look at the table NFT. We're going to bring that all together into like one kind of easy to use experience. Additionally, like as you heard Andrew and others talk about, this year is kind of like the year of improving UX in Web3. So we're trying to focus a lot on that with Tableland Studio, make onboarding and using the studio feel much more like a Web2 application actually. So to do that, we'll be leveraging some new account extraction technology that's out there to support non-custodial wallet authentication via email login or social OAuth, and of course, like more traditional, like MetaMask type of connections as well. And then maybe the biggest feature we're trying to add on top of Tableland with Studio is the idea of data blueprints, or another way to put it is like the ability to search Tableland tables created through Studio or projects created in Studio, search their descriptions and metadata for interesting table schemas that you might want to leverage in your own project. So instead of having to start from nothing, being able to search for a blueprint and just kind of clone it into your own project and modify it as needed. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going with Studio. You can learn more we'll be publishing more information about it as it comes, but we'll have hopefully like an MVP available to start some user testing this summer. And if you're interested in that, you can go to Tableland.xyz/studio to sign up for the waiting list for that MVP.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be super exciting when Studio is live, just like next level development for Web3, be a beautiful addition to the ecosystem and the space at large. So next up will be Daniel, who'll share a little bit about what's coming down the pipeline for the rigs community.
Hey, thanks, Brian. We've got kind of two updates about rigs we'll share today. First is that we have a product/security update that we're launching really soon. We've added delegated cache support to our contract to the garage. Delegated cache is an on-chain registry where you can set up like a link between a cold and a hot wallet. So what that means is that with our integration, you'll be able to keep your rigs safe in a cold wallet, and you can interact with the garage and train park rigs using a hot wallet that you've delegated access to via delegated cache. And that's launching really soon. And something else we're working on is that we're starting to integrate FT into our community. One of the first things that we're working on there is to change how we do voting. In the past, we've used snapshots to do voting, where the number of rigs that you hold at the time of the snapshot determines like your voting power. But we're building a new mechanism built on Tableland, where the amount of FT that you have will determine your voting power in votes. So that'll be really exciting for the community to start getting a good use for the FT that they've collected. And that's all for me. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. So next up is Carson Farmer, who share about the light paper that we're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. So I still have a bit of a cold. So on the protocol side of things, we are spending a lot of time this season writing our light paper. Light paper is basically the protocol high-level summary of exactly how the protocols work on the way to Tableland. And an output of the light paper is effectively what timeline and roadmap for the development cycle towards Tableland mainnet. So Some of you probably saw the announcement that Andrew and Sandra are going to talk about a little bit later, and the Litepaper is basically the blueprint towards that final mainnet launch. So we're deep heads down working on that right now. There's a lot of research and writing. We'll be updating the community with sort of intermittent findings that we make along the way. Yeah, I hope people are pretty excited about the implications of that, because it means a lot more visibility in the next sort of over the next year as to each development phase towards mainnet. So I think it's going to be pretty great. I'm looking forward to it, and you should too.
Yes, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. It'll be beautiful to see everything cleanly, clearly articulated. So much going on in the ecosystem. So that'll be a beautiful thing to have for folks to dig their teeth into. So kind of wrapping up the announcements before we jump into a little discussion Andrew and Sandra are going to have about some recent news and what's coming up shortly in terms of what we're doing with that recent news. But just to cover some events. So we mentioned that we have the Arbitrum AMA coming up on May 5th, and that we're also making plans for the ECC event in Paris in July. But this week, we're actually going to be in Austin. A few folks on the team, Andrew and myself, will be there. There's a few things going on. So ETH Austin is happening tomorrow, and then we're going to be at the Filecoin Network base on Wednesday. And so Andrew will be presenting there, and we'll have a little booth and connecting with folks who are coming through. And then Consensus is happening Wednesday through Friday. So we'll be there as well. So if anyone's in Austin this week, definitely reach out. Looking forward to connecting with more people in the ecosystem and Tablelanders at large. So looking forward to those things. And starting in May, we're also going to be participating in the FBM data hackathon. So that one will be like a 3-week program that we have some bounties up for, and excited to see folks building with Tableland and the Filecoin virtual machine that they've recently launched. So those are the main things. We'll of course keep you updated as more things arise. But with that, I'd love to pass it off to Andrew and Sander, who can share more about the fundraising announcement that we shared last week and what we plan on doing with that capital.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, buddy. Sander, you connected?
I'm here.
Hey. Cool. All right. So yeah, fundraising. We raised $8 million. Super exciting. Last week was a really fun week to tell everybody all about that. We're backed by some really great firms with some really great people. Some of them that we've known for a while, others that we've gotten to know over the last months. But yeah, that funding is really, it's just really an amazing opportunity for us now to build out Tableland and all the things that we imagined this protocol being able to do. And we have a really ambitious roadmap to get there. Yeah, I don't know. Anything to add there, Sander? And then we can try to dig into details.
Well, just maybe we could kind of reiterate sort of our long-term goal and why this is so exciting. Sort of on that path, we really want to be the database layer for the internet, and that's obviously very aspirational, but we take it really seriously. And yeah, this gives us the opportunity to double down on resources and really plan in longer time spans to make that happen.
Yeah, awesome. Brian, do you have any questions on your mind that you want to kind of warm this up with? What would you like to hear? Or what do you think folks out there want to hear?
Yeah, I mean, just giving, I think that note that Sander touched on, just the long-term aspirations of what Tableland is, what it's becoming, why we feel it's so important to this new web, what it enables. I mean, we've shared this in other contexts, but just really how this funding supports us on our mission and this journey and what it unlocks for Web3 at large.
Yeah, I mean, backing up a bit, this is sort of the culmination a lot of years of work for us. So quite literally, Sander and I sat in his backyard many years ago playing card games and thinking about where we wanted to contribute to the future technology. And we started thinking that this problem with data online was a really interesting area that had a lot of potential big innovations coming, because we just felt like that a lot of the solutions were sort of sidecard on the main protocols of the internet. This was all well before we were really paying much attention to blockchain or decentralization or anything there. And then we spent a couple of years building up our expertise with our team and early team, you know, Carson and Aaron Satula and other folks joining, but really like learning how these protocols were coming together and looking for that opportunity to land sort of a big piece of that technology. And only in the last, you know, year and a half did we really get our sights on what Tableland could be, and at the timing was right to build that, where all the other kind of periphery technologies that we need to tap into and protocols we need to ride on and ecosystems we need to be mature enough to use it. And, we're all kind of culminating and making it apparent that we could start building this database. You know, in term years, we've even done experiments on building databases on decentralized protocols, and you can check through some of our older work doing that. But really, you know, I think Tableland is like just the synthesis of a lot of it, a lot of experience and just staying true to that vision of really trying to solve some problems in this layer of the internet that works with data. And if you think about the way the internet works, every amazing application on the internet is backed by a database. So it's hard to believe that Web3 will be full of great applications until they have a great database to build on. And so that's what we're really here to do.
Awesome. Yeah, Sander or anyone else from the team that, you know, anything that you're particularly stoked on, you know, maybe a note on why we're working with SQL and SQLite, or just generally, anyone have anything they want to share in terms of, yeah, what we're excited to see, why we're excited about what we've built and things like that?
I'd like to make a quick note about kind of what we are today, which is a very functional, pretty easy to use, a little rough here and there, but generally speaking, considering the other tools out there, very easy to use database. But we're currently limited by cost and throughput because all the events route through EVMs. So really that kind of drove our initial set of use cases, which are around the NFTs and data that moves slowly. So, you know, you wouldn't go out today and build a Twitter clone or something on Tableland. You might be able to do that on Nova. Nova is one of these newer chains that drastically reduces the cost of data. So you can get something like, you know, 0.00001 cents per insert or something like that. But if you zoom that out and you start adding that up, it's actually not really cost competitive with what people are familiar with. You know, if you're a traditional Web2 developer, built lots of things, you're used to this flow where you kind of get a free tier of usage and then you can just sort of magically nowadays anyway, sort of magically auto scale that up in terms of throughput, and it's not terribly expensive. It's sort of all abstracted away from people who don't think about it very much. And Tableland, we're not there yet today, but that is our goal. We want to create that sort of experience for people where they're not even really thinking so much about, you know, should I, you know, how do I model my data in a way to get, you know, to save a few bucks here or there, where normally you just kind of throw data around because it's so cheap. So that's a huge focus of the current research we're in, and the final product, we're really hoping it. Our goal is to make it feel like that experience of, say, like using a super base or something.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe we can, if anybody has any questions too, we can either jump in the chat here along with the Mesa or drop them in general. And if you want to join the voice, just let us know. We can take any questions you have. Well, just fill in dead air here until anybody wants to jump in. Any last thoughts, Brian? I mean, I didn't really have I didn't have a broad agenda here talking through the round. I think I just shared in general our blog post, which summarizes a lot of the news there, kind of where we're going. We've actually heard updates already. It's big pieces, but for us, the roadmap is getting really clear, kind of between here and Tableland's on mainnet. And so we have a lot of work to do, but pretty awesome app from here to there. So a lot of fun updates over the coming months. And for those of you that are in Austin, definitely come hang with Brian and I at the FilePoint event.
Yeah, sounds good. And for those watching the recording, just come through our Discord. We're always available. DTB just this morning was giving some great answers to some questions in the Rigs chat channel, and Carson, but everyone's just jumping in and answering. So it's just a lively place to bring your questions, bring your inquiries. We're here to help and support developers as this ecosystem continues to get built out. So with that, I think we can call it a wrap for today. We like to keep these pretty brief, but it's great to provide the overview and have everyone on the team just getting to share what's been going on, because it's been very exciting seeing all the developments. So unless anyone knows anything else, I think we can call it.
Thanks, Brian.
Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.